going to come back to Tulsa. I was just talking with Monica about our church is called Our Lady of the Pillar. And if you don't know this devotion, feast day was October 12th, which also here happens to be Columbus Day, but that's not by accident, because Christopher Columbus, who nowadays is much maligned, consecrated his voyage to Our Lady of the Pillar. And she arranged it so that he would arrive on her feast day. And if you don't know what this devotion, sounds a little weird, and even in the collect for the Mass we celebrate, it says, "We who honor you under the peculiar title of the column." But what happened is in 40 A.D., when Our Lady was still living in Ephesus with St. John, she appeared to St. James, who had gone to Spain to bring the gospel, and at first did not meet with much success. He was depressed and feeling like his mission was not going so well. And Our Lady appeared to him up on top of this column that she said that this column will be a pledge of my protection over this land. And just like it will remain till the end of time, so will the faith remain in these lands, right? And so, although in Spain itself the faith has been declining, in the Spanish Empire, Our Lady, as you know, she is very important. She is to all of us, of course, but as we say in Mexico, not everyone is a Catholic in Mexico, but everyone is Guadalupano. Everyone loves Our Lady. And so when you go to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, you find like Our Lady images of her in all kinds of contexts. It's like Our Lady and Lucha Libre, Our Lady and NASCAR, Our Lady and, and even the thieves have like Our Lady around their neck, hoping that she's going to help them not get caught. So obviously there's a lot of catechesis to do. That pillar in Zaragoza is in a basilica now, and during I think it was during the Second World War, it was bombed, and all these shells, these bombs, landed around it, and none of them exploded. So she miraculously kept the shrine intact, and I think that's what she's doing in Latin America, because somewhere I went into this chapel, and it had around the chapel, it had all these statues of the patroness, the patron virgin of every country in Latin America. So they all have their particular devotion. And where we are in our church is Our Lady of the Pillar, and Guadalajara has Our Lady of Zapopan, which is the second most visited shrine in Mexico after Our Lady of it's the third. There's another one that used to be the patroness of our diocese, San Juan de los Lagos, which was very important during the Cristero period, and that's the second most visited shrine in Mexico. So they love Our Lady, and as I said, all these people who may be living in sin and not going to Mass, they still love Our Lady. So I think she wants to see the church obviously revive and flourish like it once did there. So I have all these materials here. Please feel free to take them. We have a new website that's coming out specifically to promote to Americans, so an English website to promote this project of Casa Cristo Rey as the effort to bring the Latin Mass to the Spanish-speaking world. And there'll be more videos going up on there periodically, and different ways to donate. Even if you can't be that big donor I mentioned, we're also going to have people on there. We need people to sponsor little things, because we're moving from a house that Father Berg described when he came. He said, "You guys don't live in a house, you live in a garage." And yeah, it's just, there's things falling off the walls and leaking and whatever. So we're going to get into this new house with 15 bedrooms, and we're going to need all these sets of sheets and plates and all that stuff. So we're going to have on the website, buy a set of sheets and towels for a guest. So little things like that, or the big things as well. Sponsor a room or different aspects of the building. So that's FSSPmexico.com. The website's still in construction, but it should be up in the next few days. So visit that. We're going to begin publishing a newsletter. We have our prototype here. So take one, and actually I meant to have a piece of paper here to take email addresses to have a my email diffusion won't be as interesting as Father Vanderputten's, I promise. But we want to send out this newsletter quarterly, so you can keep up to date on what's going on, what our needs are, and you can feel like you're a part of our parish. Because my parishioners really, they send their greetings, by the way, every time I leave, because tradition being something so new there. And Father Berg said, I know he didn't have Tulsa in mind when he said this, but he said, you have the friendliest, warmest parishioners, I think, in the fraternity. He forgot about Tulsa. But it's true, and there's a real family feeling because whereas things maybe are a little less polemical in terms of the liturgy as they tend to be here in France, the people who come are like the politics or the fighting about things. The people who find us are, because it's a culturally Catholic environment, but things just kind of go with the flow in most parishes. These are the people that want to take it a step further and want to learn how to live the faith and are serious about becoming saints by and large. And not that they're perfect, far from it, but they are so grateful for the fraternity. When Father Berg came last, this one man had tears in his eyes, and he said, the fraternity has changed our family, and I pledge everything I can give of my family and all our efforts to help this parish. And he's sincere. And so they feel like they're part of something international, and they have a lot of pride in that. And they're a little jealous because even though it doesn't always feel like it here, we have, in the States, there's a lot more access to traditional things. For instance, homeschooling is just starting in Mexico because the schools just keep getting worse and worse and worse, and maybe they're worse than they are in the United States in some places. The stories I hear are just horrendous. I won't. There's kids around, so I won't say it. But there's some families trying to homeschool, and for a long time, until just recently, it was illegal, and they're doing it anyway. Now it's legal, but you have to jump through all these hoops. And now they're worried that it's going to be harder again because they just passed some law in the state of Jalisco, I think it was, saying that every child has a right to learn about X, Y, and Z, things that parents don't want them to learn about. And now they're going to use that as the fear. They say, well, you can't keep your kids at home because you're denying them their right to learn about this. So, but they don't have any resources. There's no Seton home study programs all prepared. And here there's how many different programs, right? So these people are just going to the store and saying, well, I guess we'll use this book and no support, whatever. So when we get in this house, that's one of the first things we're going to do is have one day a week where the families can come there and they can start, at least have some camaraderie, and the priest can help with some of this stuff so they don't feel like they're totally out on their own. But as one parent said, they told me, to me, it doesn't seem like in good conscience. I don't know how any parent in good conscience can send their kid to school anymore. So anyway, they're great. They're very grateful for the support, and I'll just tell you a few quick anecdotes, and then I'll be done. But it's neat being especially as a new priest, being in a Catholic country, at least with these residual Catholic cultural elements. Like for instance, when I fly, I have my holy oils in one of my bags, and usually they don't even mention anything. But one time I went through the x-ray thing, and they're like, do you have some metal container in here? And they started searching my bag, and I didn't know what they were looking for. And they pull out it's in a little leather pouch, and I said, oh, that's just the holy oils. And, oh, I'm sorry. Put it right back in. Or just the other day, I got called. We get sick calls all the time because, unfortunately, even though Guadalajara has 2,000 priests, they can't get priests to answer the phone at night. So, but they know that we'll come, and it's so bad of a problem that 30 years ago it was a problem. They started an apostolate where priests sign up one day a month, and there's a team of laymen who they stay up all night and answer the phones. There's a little cot for the priests, and you take a nap. But when a call comes in, they take all the information. They wake you up and they drive you to the hospital and help you, assist you and everything. And it's often very exhausting, but it's so rewarding to be in those situations. I'm just mesmerized at the providence of God, and I often say to these people, I said, God sent me to you, a foreigner, to you in this bed this night. God wants you to convert and to be with Him in heaven. It's not an accident, right? They also have. They like to stay up late all night, men. There, they also have, but it's beautiful. These apostolates they do. They have this nocturnal adoration society, and it goes back a long time. And we've revived it in our parish. And the men lock themselves in the church all night, from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. with the Blessed Sacrament exposed. And there's a ritual for the whole night. And they take shifts, and there's like changing of the guard, and it gives me goosebumps when I see it all the time, because like when it's one shift is over and the men who are the next one, they walk up the center aisle and they do 3 prostrations and they say, may our Lord Christ be forever praised and adored, Christ our King in the Blessed Sacrament. But these are the people that have found us. I went to one man who's going to die soon, if he didn't die already, and I never met him before. I don't know how they even found my number, but he hadn't confessed in a long time. And as I brought the Blessed Sacrament, and I'm talking to him, and he said, "But Father, I have these doubts." And I said, "Okay, well, tell me what are your doubts?" And I had put the Blessed Sacrament on the corporal and genuflected, and he said, after he'd asked me some things, and he said, "I have another question." And I guess this was part of why he hadn't confessed in a long time. He said, "Why in so many churches do people not reverence our Lord anymore? Even the priests don't genuflect in the churches." And this was, had caused him a crisis or whatever. And thanks be to God, he made a good confession and made his peace. But so there's hunger, right? We got to feed it. And some things are even funny. Like I was in a convenience store, just getting a bottle of water or something, and some guy was really watching me, because no priest wears a collar except for us and the SSPX, and there's lots of SSPX and lots of Sedevacantists there. So I think that shows that there's a hunger for the liturgy. They don't understand all the theological concepts, but they want reverence, right? So he was mesmerized, and he waited for me as I came out, and he says, excuse me, are you a priest?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Are you the kind that says Mass?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Oh, this is so great. I've been looking all over. I need a blessing. Can you give me a blessing?" It's like 2 o'clock on Monday afternoon. He said, "I went to this church and no one was there. And when you need a blessing, you need a blessing." I gave him a blessing. And his eyes open. He said, "Was that Latin?" And I said, "Yes, it was." He said, "Oh, Father, I've been reading. Have you ever heard about the Latin Mass?"
That's so sweet.
I said, "Well, yes, I say it every day." He said, "There's a Latin Mass in Guadalajara?" He said, "Oh, I mean no disrespect to the Pope or anything like that, but I've been reading about it, and it seems to me this was the Mass that the apostles gave us, and we should all be having this Mass." I said, "Okay." Yeah, far from the kingdom of heaven. So that's what I mean. It's this, and well, I could go on and on with stories, but like the man in Peru who came 6 hours he drove because he heard the fraternity was going to be in Peru. 6 hours, and he didn't make an appointment or anything. He just showed up, and this was during the mission trip, and I was really busy with keeping all these kids in line and everything. And so I couldn't even talk to him right then. I said, "Well, come back at this time," whatever, and he persevered. He came, and we sat down and talked. He said, "I'm part of this group that tries to promote the Latin Mass, but Father, I don't understand. I read Summorum Pontificum, and it says when the people are asking for the Latin Mass that they should give it. But in the whole country of Peru has 30 million people. There's only one Latin Mass twice a month. And he was so mad because he said, my country was one of the first to be evangelized, and we're losing the faith. So anyway, so I invite you to take the newsletter. Any questions I can answer, or you want to go back to eating?
How open are the bishops?
Well, not so much.
It's kind of like
It's really, well, no, it's much worse. Much worse.
worse.
Like the bishop that I mentioned in the homily who said the Latin Mass isn't Catholic. And that's a lot of the mentality. The former cardinal of Guadalajara was really good, and he invited us in. And he's the kind of bishop we like, because the media hates him because, they have this gay marriage stuff going on there now and everything. But he makes these hard statements, and he really he got in some deep water, because he even in an interview when they asked him about this, and he used an almost vulgar term, but like a street term, to refer to this kind of stuff. And he said, no, common sense Mexicans don't want any of... And they were like, oh, how dare he say that? But, he was the one of like 4 bishops in the country who recently did an exorcism on the whole country. Did you hear about this?
No.
Because there was, I don't know if you saw, right after Pope Francis was elected, there was this image of him with this like possessed guy that he like prayed over or whatever. That guy was from Mexico. And that guy, they brought him to Father Amorth after that encounter. And he had these, he said these things where basically he said that there are more demons in Mexico than there have been since before Our Lady of Guadalupe came. And he said that God is, with all the narco trafficking stuff, God is punishing Mexico because they allowed abortion. Abortion's legal in Mexico City, and they're trying to push it through the whole country. And that was, take it or leave it. But there's, it's kind of interesting because, this all erupted right about the same time, and so that's why they did this exorcism of the whole country. There were 4 or 5 bishops that got together, and one of the cardinal in Michoacan, in Morelia, who was recently named a cardinal, and the Pope named these cardinals from not so big places, a few of them. And I don't know how he got in there, because he actually says the Latin Mass and has one regularly in his cathedral in this other city. So that's hopeful. But by and large, many of the bishops are very anti-Latin Mass. The one in Piura, where we go on the mission trip, he's very open to it. He wants us to come there, but most of them aren't. Other questions, comments?
So are you looking to build another church somewhere else that's not, is that on the list of things to do, or not yet?
In Guadalajara? Well, I have a dream. That man I mentioned, I talked to that Protestant, that church is 1 block from this new house we bought. And it's gorgeous. You'll see it in the video that's going to come out if you check the website. But it must have been Catholic at one point, but it's a big, like, neo-Gothic looking church, and with a convent. And it would be so ideal for us. And I thought, one thing I can be sure of is God does not want that to be a Protestant church. So whether he wants us to have it or not, but it would be ideal for us. So, that's what I'm saying. If I don't know how much it would cost, and I think that if we started doing processions with Our Lady around there, then people would start converting. I just told Monica, that guy I talked to, when I asked him, what do you guys believe? And he said, the first thing he said was, well, we don't worship images. And he said, but we honor Our Lady a lot, but we don't worship her images. So it's like you can't get the Guadalupano out of the Mexican, even if they're a Congregationalist. Like, how do you get? It's like Massachusetts Puritans. How do they get it? But that's why I think it'd be really easy. And if there were someone wants to buy a church in Mexico, it's probably $1 million would or less would get it, because this house we're buying, we're buying it from Opus Dei with 15 rooms, classrooms, a chapel, a library, offices. It's about $680,000.
Wow.
Right on in front of a big fountain in a nice neighborhood. So.
Was this church you want right next door?
One block away.
For sale?
Not yet.
Again.
Who's using it now?
Congregationalists. Yeah. But the one who founded that as a Protestant church, I just found out, he converted. He came back to the church. Yeah, because the lady who lives in this Opus Dei house, she said she gives conferences on the Shroud of Turin, and she hosted this conference, and he came. And after she explained all this stuff and made all these connections, he came back to the church. But then they found another pastor. So, but we'll see. The possibilities are really great because there's just, even though there's a lot of priests, there's so much hunger, right? I mean, we could be blessing houses and visit. There's all these hospitals, and there's people dying without the sacraments because they don't know to ask sometimes. Because when I get called for one person, there's usually 20 more who want something when they're reminded when they see the priest. And so it's really the harvest is right, but the laborers are few. So. Mm-hmm.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about the Spanish immersion project?
Oh, yeah.
Diocesan priests? Is that part of a way to sort of encourage diocesan priests also for the traditional mass?
Yeah, so it's a dual purpose here. We have some of these brochures. We're hoping that this will make us some money, for one, because dioceses are interested in Hispanic ministry, right? We had a guy come on his own initiative last year from the Diocese of Charlotte, and he was in heaven because he could say the traditional mass every day for 8 weeks. And we didn't ask him for any money. He was just a friend. And he said, no, my diocese raised $10 million for Hispanic ministry. So I'm going to make sure some of that gets to you. And he paid us $8,000 just to come and stay there. That didn't even include his tuition. So there's a real need, a desire out there. And I already spoke to the vocations director here, and he wants to send a couple of guys. But from our point of view, too, what the good dioceses are looking for is a Spanish program that doesn't sacrifice the formation in the summer, because there are programs, but you live with families and I did one when I was a diocesan seminarian, and one of the guys married his teacher, So when you're not in a structured environment where you keep your prayer life and people are watching what you're doing and everything, there's risks. Better he found out then, but. No, but they want a structure of prayer and everything. And what this priest who came last summer says, many dioceses actually want their priests to learn the traditional Mass, and not just the Mass, but to live it and to know more about it, but the other sacraments too. Like, they never teach you how to do a baptism or how to do a wedding or something. So we're hoping that we can kind of put a new spin on Hispanic ministry. Like, one guy I talked to came to visit for a baptism, had never been to a traditional Mass, and was talking to him over lunch, and he was a musician. And I said, in the States we have this image, like the Mexican Masses, where they have like the maracas or the tambourines and the mariachi and whatever, and it's pretty wild, and he slammed his hand on the table and he said, "We had sacred music in our country before you had a country." So he was offended that we had this idea, and it's true, because people here in the States, they think that mariachi masses don't exist in Mexico. They're part of the Chicano culture when people come here, because the cultural ambient that they have in Mexico is reduced to whatever, if they go to church, whatever happens at church. So they try to incorporate all that stuff into Mass. Whereas in a Catholic culture, everything's permeated with the faith, and then there's all these other cultural elements too, but you have your feast days and the mariachi music maybe at the party or whatever. So, and it's hard for us to understand that, but that's really ideal, right? We'd love to, be great if we could build a Catholic culture everywhere. Here we have a shell of a Catholic, and there we have a shell of a Catholic culture. We need to fill it in so it doesn't shatter completely, because really the trend is more McDonald's and more secularism and more American TV and all this sort of stuff.
Mexican TV is that good?
What's that?
Like Mexican TV is any good?
No, worse, I'm sure. So we hope that we can accomplish both of those purposes. Hispanic ministry and traditional formation, and it's good for our priests too, because the fraternity we just opened in El Paso. We have 3 priests in San Diego. Only one of them speaks Spanish, and they're in a neighborhood that is 70% Spanish speaking. So the opportunities in these places is big, and some of the statistics I read are really startling. All we talk about immigration, right? There's a lot of sides of it that don't get talked about. One, what's happening back home. Went on a radio program and talked about this because I went to a village in a rural part of Mexico, and there were no men and no young people. It was I went to this one house. The youngest person in charge of caring for the siblings was 82 years old, and I went and to visit them, and she thought I was too young to be a priest. And then when I told her I was a priest, she was so embarrassed because they always kiss the priest's hand. This is the old tradition, and it took me a while to get used to. But they always kiss the priest's hand, and in traditional circles they're trying to revive it, right? And if the kids don't do it, they discipline them. They say, "Greet Father like the people should." That's what they say. And she had tears in her eyes, and I said, "Well, we're going to have this Latin Mass," and she was like, "Oh, I haven't been to Mass in 3 years. I remember when we had these beautiful processions and the posadas and this and that," and she said, "But I can't walk." I said, "Well, we have a truck. We'll drive up here and get you." And she was just, she was amazed. She just couldn't believe it, And so she came to Mass, and she was able to go to confession for the first time, and and so. So what was I saying? But a lot of the Hispanics who are coming to the States are leaving the church. It used to be even just, what was the statistic, like 9 years ago, it was still 7 out of 10, 70-something% were Catholic. Now it's barely 50% that are coming are Catholic, and what is it now? Like one in 4 are ex-Catholic that once they're here leave the faith. Something like that. You can look up the statistics. It's really startling, and a lot of the reasons they give is that they found a more dynamic community, or no one welcomed them, or whatever. So the Protestants are beating us at this because they're reaching out to them. Mm-hmm.
I worked in the migrant community for a long time, Father. The problem in the community is that these men come over not
Yes.
married, and they can't get any papers to prove that they can get married in the church. So the church won't marry them, so they get married anyways, and then they're excommunicated.
Well, or they come and they are married. This is the other problem. That's very that's not uncommon at all, that they have a marriage there and a marriage here.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so right, this is the side of, not to get political, but this is this people flowing over is destroying families back home, So, but if we can create a good Catholic culture for them where they end up, then we can work to solve that problem too. Because if you're a good Catholic, you're not going to do those sorts of things, right? So we need to be. That's obviously an important thing for us to be able to do. So that's one of the things we hope to do with this.
In creating a good traditional Catholic culture, what types of things, other than, what about for the kids? Like what do you do?
What do we do?
What's on the,
Well,
on the
I mean,
agenda to do?
so you still have these feast days are still important, and they do have, like Our Lady of Zapopan. Monday was a day off of school and work and everything, and people go to the processions. But catechesis is really important. So one of the reasons they're losing the Catholic culture there is because the statistic is that only about 10% of Mexican children go to catechism. So of course they're not going to care. They don't know anything about the faith. So we have a group for girls, and we try to do formation with the boys, and we have some service projects we do, and we do missions during Holy Week. Something I invite you to consider. We open it up to families because it's a family mission that we do in Mexico, and because Holy Week is a holiday the whole week, and most people go to the beach, but some people want to keep it as holy. So they go out into rural villages and they knock on doors and ask people if they're practicing and when they were last going to confession. And our spin on it this year was awesome. We went into all these little villages. We found a pastor who was amenable to the traditional mass, and he's got 20 or 30 chapels in little villages around his town. And we said the mass in different places each day. And so we'd spend the morning knocking on the doors, telling them about the mass, inviting them to come. And then they'd come and go to confession and hear a talk and go to mass. And for me, it was spectacular to watch too, because it was the families doing it, and even the little kids who were eager to tell these old people or older, their elders, why the Latin Mass is so great and why they should come to the Latin Mass and why they prefer it. And these are like 8-year-old kids. They're just on fire. They just made their first communion, but here they are actually being apostles, huh? Mm-hmm. And so this year we opened it up to American families that come. We had one family come, and we hope to grow it. And it's relatively inexpensive to come down there. And even if you don't speak Spanish, it doesn't matter, because there's people who can translate. And seeing your face, seeing that it was important for you to make the effort to come, speaks volumes. And then it's just fun to watch how, like this family, they're little kids. Somehow they were best friends with these Mexican kids, and none of them spoke the other's language, but kids can figure out a way, huh? So, I mean, it was, I know for that American family, it was really enriching. And so we have some information on that in one of these brochures, St. Francis Xavier Mission Trip. And we can even, there's certain prices in there, but we can tweak them too for families if you want to come, because the expense is not too much. So I encourage you to come and see what we do.
Is it just you and Father Romanowski doing all of this?
Mm-hmm.
You guys must be so tired.
Father let me sleep in this one.
Father slept in.
Yes. No, we need more priests. I think our model in Latin America is going to be different than it is in the States. Like, little parishes aren't going to work as well, but in a big house like this, we could have 10 priests in a big city. We're in a city of 6 million people. So we could be doing things all over the place and then come back for our community life and everything. And I think that might be the model that we end up developing in Latin America. We'll see. But it's really exciting to be kind of on the frontier, because this is the next step for the fraternity and hopefully the Latin Mass. So it's neat to see how the fruits are coming, so, and all the potential there is. So
Awesome, Father.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any kind of a program you could recommend for those of us who know a little bit of Spanish but want to get fluent?
Like, you want to travel somewhere, or you want to just study here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't afford to travel.
I don't know. Rosetta Stone, I've heard is good. Or there's one, Michelle Thomas is one of the one I heard that was good. Yeah, Rosetta Stone I think is.
It's kind of expensive.
Yeah, unfortunately. I don't know. I met a kid in Monterey when I said Mass, and he was speaking to me in English. And it was really good. I'm like, how'd you learn English? He said, Call of Duty.
Watching TV. Watching TV.
Yeah, another lady just told me that too.
TV.
She speaks English really well, and I just said, how'd you learn English? She said, watching American TV programs.
Scary.
But don't learn Spanish watching telenovelas, please. So,
Yeah, I need to check on my dog.
well, thanks very much. I'm gonna eat something.
Thank you, Father.
Very good.
You're welcome.
So
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you, Father.
Father.